Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a story of what if Madara reveals himself to be Naruto's grandfather. He infused both his cells and Hashirama's cells into Naruto. Naruto becomes strong as a result, awakening the Sharingan and later the Rinnegan. Before we start, thank you for the support, it really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe and leave like and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. And now let us start. I present to you, Chapter 11, What Are You? It had been a whole week and nothing was happening. Naruto was a patient person. However, this was too much even for him. He had come to test his strength, not sit around and listen to Mei or Yugao while they speak. Naruto was getting tired of it. He had come to the village to test his strength, not converse. Mei was also pushing him too far. Unless he got some action to release all the energy within, he would soon be on the edge. He was not going to wait for something like to occur while he just stood. He did not care for what the Mizukage was thinking or if Mei's forces were not ready for an all-out war. He could cripple any army on his own without help from anyone. Sighing, Naruto walked toward Mei's tent. He realized that he had been sighing a lot lately. Boredom could drive anyone to anything. He hated having to report to her of what he was going to do. It was like he was taking orders from her, and Naruto hated taking orders from someone. Well, when he does go back to Konoha, he would have to swallow his pride, and take orders from Tsunade. She was the Godime Hokage and had authority over each shinobi of the village. Still, he was not going to allow her to boss him around or make him to staff he did not like just because she was the Hokage. Naruto did not bother to announce his presence before getting inside the tent. He knew the woman would be inside sitting on her chair. During day, she was always sitting there unless she was doing something that could not be done inside her tent. Mei smiled brightly upon seeing Naruto. She was not alone in the office. She had Ao, Chojuro and 3 other men in her company. They were probably discussing battle strategies. Can't stay away from me, Mei stated with a teasing smile. Naruto just shrugged and simply ignored the other occupants in the room. I'm going to force Yugura out, Naruto announced. Mei raised a brow. What? I'm going to force Yugura to come out. I have grown tired of waiting, Naruto replied, turning away from Mei. We are not prepared to fight him now. Don't go doing something like, a man said sternly upon hearing Naruto's words. I agree with Tamashi. We cannot afford to go in an all-out war with Yugura now. We still need some time to get more men and to formulate our battle strategy. Ao said. You are speaking as if he can actually force Yugura to fight us. We have tried that many times, when we were still at our full strength. No offense, Mei-sama, but even your presence in the battlefield could not force Yugura to come out. Another man stated with a snicker at Naruto. Mei frowned. She did not tell them that Naruto stated that he could summon the Kyuubi. She did not want to get their hopes up. Don't get involved if you are not strong enough. I did not even request that you come to fight when Yugura does show up. I was merely letting you know what I was going to do. Naruto replied without even looking back to the man. Who do you think you are here? You are not the boss, Mei-sama is, and nothing happens unless she says so. Ao said, his voice raised as he glared at Naruto's back. Naruto continued on walking away without responding. It was not worth it to respond to Ao. Ao, calm down, Mei said. Naruto, can I speak with you for a moment? She said, her voice now being serious. Naruto stopped walking, inviting her to come and say what she wishes. Mei walked up to Naruto and looked at him with a rather serious look. I appreciate that you are trying to help, but you can't come here and undermine my authority. I don't want you doing anything that will put my men at risk, she said. Oh, he said. They won't be at risk unless they get in my way. What I am doing works for you better. I can cripple Yagura's forces, your men can come up and finish things. Naruto stated and began to walk away. Mei caught him by his hand. Naruto turned around and looked at the woman with a raised brow. Mei stared at Naruto's eyes as if she was trying to decipher something. Slowly she let go of Naruto's hand and sighed. Naruto was going to do what he wanted, there was not stopping him. She deduced that much by just looking at his eyes. Ao, Chojuro, come with me, Mei called. Chojuro and Ao came to her and they followed Naruto. They traveled for about an hour at a fair pace. In the place they were they could see Yagura's base, the Mizukage's tower. Ao was beginning to think that Naruto was leading them to a trap. He was beginning to think that Naruto was going to hand them over to Yagura's forces. He searched everywhere with his Byakugan, trying to see if there were shinobi waiting to ambush them. However, he found none. He breathed out a sigh of relief when he did see that there was no one waiting to ambush them. Naruto suddenly stopped. "You may want to stop there," he said before walking further away from the group. After he had made a good distance with the group, Naruto went through a set of hand seals. He slammed his hands on the ground and a seal appeared on it. Kuchio's no jutsu. Mei and her two bodyguards just stared with wide eyes. They felt that Naruto released huge amounts of chakra to summon whatever that he was summoning. A large puff of smoke appeared and they felt the demonic presence, the foul chakra that suffocated everyone beneath it. When the smoke cleared, the Kyuubi stood in all its menacing glory, its 9 tails waving slowly behind it. Fear and awe crept within them as they stared at the beast that was said to be able to make tsunamis with a single swipe of its tail. The Kyuubi was the beast that went on a rampage at Konoha many years ago, the beast that many villages attempted and failed to capture to add as their military weapon, the strongest Biju in all of the 9-tailed beasts. Seeing the monster in front of them, they took a few steps back in fear of the beast. Mei Terumi had a single though in her mind, he can really summon it. Naruto had said he could, a part of her wanted to believe it, a part of her refused to believe unless she saw it. Now that she was seeing it, she believed. If anything he was to say he could do after this, she would believe him without a single cent of doubt in her mind. "Naruto, why have you brought me here?" the Kyuubi asked in its deep menacing voice that would send shivers down to anyone's spine. Its blood-red silted eyes stared at Naruto waiting for a response. "I want you to do something for me." Naruto replied, his tone up so the Kyuubi could hear him as he was standing beside its paws. He had his hands crossed on his chest, eyes not even looking at the Kyuubi when he responded. "Tell me so I can do it quickly, and go back to taking my nap," the Kyuubi responded. Mei and her man almost face-faulted at the Kyuubi's response. The almighty Kyuubi would only be concerned about taking a nap. It was supposed to be a beast of mass destruction, not a beast of taking naps. Chojuro quickly erased a thought in his head of the Kyuubi sleeping with bubbles coming out of its nose. "Even given your freedom all you do is sleep," Naruto stated, shaking his head. "I called you here because I want you to fire a Bijumuda at the tallest building you can see from here," he said. The tallest building was the Mizukage's tower. Even if Yagura is present when the Bijumuda hit the tower, Naruto had no doubt the man would survive. "Fine," Kyuubi replied with a shrug and then brought its tails over its head in concentration. Chakra began to form above it before mixing, forming a large ball of mass energy. The Kyuubi directed the Bijumuda towards its target. The attack traveled a rather fast speed for something its size. The attack left its mark on the earth as it peeled off chunks of earth. After traveling a considerable distance it finally hit the tower and blew it up. "You can go," Naruto said, turning away from the explosion. The Kyuubi disappeared in a puff of smoke without saying any further word. Naruto raised a brow seeing the shocked expressions on Mei, Ao, and Chojuro had both shocked and fear in his face. Naruto walked towards them calmly. Upon reaching them he spoke, "Give it a few days and Yagura's forces will be charging at your camps," Naruto said, walking past them. Mei was first to get over her shock. She followed Naruto, and Chojuro and Ao followed her from behind, keeping their distance so to give her some space to speak with Naruto. Without doubt, there were things that needed to be discussed. From this day onward, Ao would never look at Naruto the same as he had been. "So you went kidding when you said you could summon the Kyuubi," Mei said, having caught up to Naruto. Naruto looked at her at the corner of his eye. "What gave you the idea that I was kidding?" "Nothing, it was just hard to believe that you could actually do it," Mei responded, her ever-present smile flashing at Naruto. "I don't see how something like that could be," Naruto trailed off. Naruto narrowed his eyes at his front. "It appears that your men are on their way here. They must have felt the Kyuubi's presence," Naruto noted after sensing a number of shinobi making their way towards them. "I would have been surprised if they did not," Mei replied. "I'm sure even now Yagura must be panicking after that attack." Naruto said nothing after Mei. Her men were already near their location. They would be making noise wanting to know what had happened. He was not going to hang about to witness that. It did not take long for the rebels to get to them. As soon as they appeared, Naruto disappeared from the crowd. Naruto's tent. Naruto appeared at the entrance of his tent. The camp was still full of shinobi moving about the camps. Not all of them had gone out to inspect what their senses had picked up. That was logical to leave some men behind to guard the camp while others went away. If they did not take that precaution, they would risk having their camp destroyed should their enemy decide to attack their camp. He walked inside and saw a shadow sitting on his bed. Naruto sighed. He should have already gotten used to this. He was wondering why he did not have a clone take back Yugao to Konoha. He was the only one she knew at this place, thus she tended to spend excessively much time in his presence. It was good that Zetsu had yet to get to the camps. Had he been here, they would never have gotten a chance to speak, since if it was not Yugao, it was Mei. At least Yugao did not flirt with him. She behaved well, as any Anbu should. It appears like you are always following my movements. Naruto commented. No, it's not that. I just know that during day if you are not with Mei-san you are usually in here. Yugao responded. Then cursed herself after seeing how weird it sounded. Then, Naruto stated looking at the woman. She seemed to have something in her mind. I may have been young 16 years ago when the Kyuubi almost destroyed Konoha, but I can never forget how it felt like when it appeared in its foul chakra. Naruto remained quiet. Yugao had not asked a question, there was nothing for him to respond to. Did you release it? Naruto simply nodded. Do you know how Konoha might react when they find out you can release it? People will start to look at you with fear that you might release the Kyuubi. Yugao stated looking straight into Naruto's eyes. You should not concern yourself with what I do, Naruto replied and walked away from his tent. 3 days later Naruto had been waiting patiently for Yagura to have his men charge at the rebels' camps. He had gone back to wearing his armor as he waited. He had no doubt in mind that Yagura would run about to attack Mei and her men. At the rebels' camps, things had been rather busy as they formulated their battle strategies. Naruto never got involved with it. There was no need for a strategy if he was going to face an army of weak shinobi who could not make him sweat. He just needed them to be test dummies for his jutsus. They are on their way. Naruto looked to see Zetsu. When did you get here? A day ago, Naruto nodded. He did need to know why he did not inform him that he had arrived at the village. He had no problems with it, as long as he was there when he was needed. Zetsu was someone he could count on. There was no need for him to question. He was probably spying on Yagura. Shall we? Naruto said getting up from his position. He picked up his gunbai and strapped it on his back. Zetsu sank to the ground without saying anything. Without warning or telling anyone, Naruto began to move towards the direction in which Yagura's men were marching. He was feeling a bit excited by the prospect of having to finally get a field where he could go wild, a field to perform a few tests and enjoy a good fight. It was definitely going to be good to fight against multiple opponents while he was just one man. It did not take long for Mei and her men to follow behind him. Mei rushed up to get to him leaving her men behind. You look rather happy, she commented upon seeing the look on his face. That is because I am happy, Naruto replied. So are you going to summon the Kyuubi? If you or tell me, I don't want to have my men caught up in its path. No, but you can tell your men to stay back until Yagura shows up. Naruto stated. You are going to fight more than 2,000 shinobi alone without the Kyuubi. Yes, Naruto replied as if it was not a big deal. He increased his pace leaving Mei behind him. Mei frowned seeing him leave like that. She was worried about him. She did not know how powerful he was, but fighting against more than 2,000 shinobi on his own was being reckless. She sighed and looked back at her men who had caught up to her. Let's go, but we will keep out distance. We will only observe. You will engage the enemy when I tell you to. Mei stated her orders. Her men did not question her. She was the leader and thus, knew what was best. They began to move on towards their enemy. After a few minutes, they hid themselves a distance away from Yagura's army who were now standing still with one man standing in front of them. Is he thinking of fighting them alone? One man asked. He is crazy, another yelled out. Yugao who was in the front line saw Naruto and widened her eyes. She was about to run towards him, but was stopped by Mei. Don't. You can't just let him go there alone. Yugao said her voice raised showing just how much she disagreed with the situation. Even though Mei wanted to send her men and engage Yagura's army as she was worried about Naruto, she found herself saying a few simple words, "Just watch." Yagura's army stood still watching Naruto. The ones in the front lines could sense the Mei's army was already in position. They stood still watching Naruto, wondering what he might do. Surely he did not wish to engage an army by himself. If he did something, it would be suicide. Anyone who had things working properly in their heads could conclude that. What is this? Did that bitch Mei send you to try to stop us? A man in his late 30s said, looking insulted by the fact that only a single boy was standing in front of them. Let's just kill him and move on. Another said, earning a resounding approval from the others. Naruto could not help but smile at the shinobi before him. Well then, shall we? Naruto, as he charged at the army. They stood still, trying to think if he was serious about engaging them in a fight. He was just one man, for God's sake. Naruto did not care for what they were thinking. He simply charged at the army. He jumped up and fell inside the sea of shinobi. It did not take a second long for one to charge at him with a sword raised. Naruto ducked under the swipe and kicked the man at his chest. Faster than any could see, he sped through a set of hand seals. Fire style. Majestic flame destroyer. A wave of hot flames was expelled from his mouth. The jutsu spread out wide. The Kiri shinobi who were not expecting the jutsu to spread out wide and to be used were unfortunate. Because Naruto was standing in the middle of them, they could not use their own jutsus to attack. The majestic flames burned more than 100 men alive that were close to Naruto when he expelled the jutsu. Some were fortunate enough not to get caught in the jutsu. Naruto had used the jutsu simply to create a space between him and the army. It would give him more breathing space to do what he wanted. Naruto charged at the disorientated shinobi. A man was caught within his range by a kick to the temple that sent him flying towards the others. Naruto began to deliver hits from shinobi to shinobi. No one was able to land a hit of him as he made his charge. He was only engaging them in taijutsu battle as he wanted to see how his Sharingan and taijutsu fared against a number of shinobi. When he was satisfied with the results, he jumped away from Yagura's army. 4 clones appeared beside him. The clones had their own assignment to do. Therefore, they disappeared from view off to begin their assignments. Naruto went through hand seals before slamming his hands on the ground. Wood release. Piercing spikes. A large number of spikes shot out from the ground and flew towards the enemy. The wooden spikes were sharp and a single hit could pierce through flesh and leave a nasty wound. The spikes could also kill should they hit a vital point of the body. The spikes fell like rain at Yagura's army. Naruto smiled slightly as he watched them dance around to the song his spikes were singing. The attack in his previous had managed to scatter the army, forcing them in groups, creating distances around them. A few were pierced by the spikes, some killed as the spikes hit vital points on the body, some were left bleeding heavily. Others were able to use earth jutsus as protective shields. Water release. Water dragon. A random shinobi yelled, expelling a large water dragon towards Naruto, looking to catch him off guard. Naruto knew that water dragons could be controlled remotely. Therefore, trying to avoid it would be pointless. He went through his own hand seals. Fire release. Fire dragon. He yelled as he released a fire dragon equally to the water dragon. The jutsus met in between and tried to push each other for dominance. A smoke of steam was conceived because of the two elements pushing each other for dominance. In the end, there was no winner. Water release. Water bullet. A water bullet sped towards Naruto in great speed. Naruto was on alert. He leapt into the air. Gravity did its duty in pulling him down. As he landed down, a large explosion occurred in the air. He looked up and saw a cloud of flames spreading across the battlefield, covering a distance of around 300 meters. Naruto smiled. His clones had completed their jobs. Each clone had disguised itself, and all 4 surrounded the army before firing the majestic fire destruction, each into the air. After that, they would have to stand still in concentration to contain the flames together. The jutsus colliding had caused the explosion. Yagura's army stood still with wide eyes as they stared at the cloud of flames. There was no mistake, it was flames. They could feel the intense heat of the flames. If the flames were to just drop on them, they would be killed. Many of the ninjas begun to run around trying to get away from the range of the flames. What the hell is that? A man from Mei's army yelled, staring at the large cloud of flames hovering in the air. They were all shocked. They had never seen anything like it before. He is preparing for a jutsu, outdeduced staring at the flames. One thing was certain, it had to take a lot of chakra to put those flames in the air. It also had to take almost perfect chakra control to keep those flames in the air. Ao was impressed. Whatever it is not something I would like to go against. Imagine if those flames just dropped. How do you defend yourself against something that is falling off the sky? Another man stated, repressing a shudder as he thought what would happen if the flames were to drop on top of them. Mei simply stared, wondering what Naruto wanted to do. She could as well say that he was also not kidding when he said he wanted to test a few things. She was also glad that he was doing well. Regardless, it was just a matter of time before the army overwhelmed him. When that does happen, I will be ready to rescue you, Naruto. Mei thought to herself. Naruto quickly went through 35 hand seals as he took control of the flames. He held a tiger seal, fire release, crying heavens, he muttered. A scene that many would never forget occurred. It began to rain. Raindrops fell from the sky as the flame cloud wept. The rain was not a normal rain, instead of water it was raining fire. It started slowly before all hell broke loose as the flames began to rain heavily on Yagura's army. The flame drop's heat was intense. Pain and death awaited for those unlucky to be caught in the rain. Those who knew earth jutsus did them to hide under. The earth would protect them from the rain if it did not melt from the intense heat of the flames. Because the flames were raining heavily, some who had buried themselves underground remained there. A few tried using water jutsus, shooting them to the sky. That only served as temporary protection, because as soon as their jutsus died down, the rain fell on them. Others who were overwhelmed with fear just danced around as the flames fell on them. Others did the smart thing and ran away from the rain as it was not raining across the entire battlefield. It rained for 3 minutes without stopping. When it finally stopped raining, shinobis were scattered around the battlefield. Some lying down on the ground burned, dead. Some had their bodies breathing out steam as their bodies had suffered major burns. A large number of Yagura's army who were not within the range of the flames stood at the scene before them with wide eyes. This was not something that one expected to see. If they had been told that they were signing up for this, they probably would have never signed up for the war. The horrors were not over yet as a thick fire cloud loomed over the sky above them. Many began to take a few steps back in fear of the rain falling again. Rebels, even though they are our enemies, I cannot wish for anyone to die like that. A young woman stated, looking at the battlefield. Her words earned silent nods from her comrades. I'm just happy that he is not our enemy, another stated, earning nods from his comrades. Yugao just watched with shock written all over her face. 10 years ago, when Naruto was still running around Konoha screaming about being Hokage, if someone had told her at that time that Naruto would be able to do things like what she now witnessing him do, she would have snapped their necks. She had never thought that he would be able to cause so much death, a sense of dread within his enemies. Mei just stared at Naruto. Her eyes were not focused on a Yagura's army, no, she had her eyes at Naruto. She could now see why he did not even bother to summon the Kyuubi. Yagura's army was now below 2,000 and Naruto had been doing all the destruction himself. Back at the battlefield, Naruto smiled seeing the success of his jutsu. The jutsu was performed perfectly and the damage it caused was perfect. The training had been worth it. Now for some fireworks, Naruto said to himself as he clasped his hands together. He moved the flame cloud above a large group of shinobi. Upon realization of what was above them, they began to scream, running around in an attempt to escape the shadow of the flames. Naruto wasted no time. Flame cloud began to descend down on the enemy. The 4 clones jumped into midair and surrounded the flames. They all stretched out their hands. Upon doing that, the cloud began to take a shape of a round swirling ball of flames. One of the clones began to form a set of hand seals. The swirling ball of flames was now going to hit the ground in the battleground. The clone which had been making had seals, fired a torrent of lighting towards the ball of flames. The ball became unstable with the 2 elements as they were not balanced to remain intact with each other. The clones puffed away from existence when the unstable ball was just touching distance away from the ground. Lightning flame explosion, Naruto muttered as the flames sparkling with electricity hit the ground and exploded. Boom. The explosion was big, it shook the entire battlefield. The explosion lifted large amounts of rocks and dust. It also created a large shockwave that rocked the entire battlefield. The shockwave was so powerful that it blew away every shinobi that was within its range. The enemies that were caught in explosion screamed as lightning and fire tore through their bodies. As soon as the debris cleared, all eyes widened. There was a large crater in the middle of the battlefield. It went better than I had expected since I had yet to try it out, Naruto said to himself. Rebels after getting over her shock, Mei looked at Ao, what happened? When you saw the clones surrounding the fireball, they were not just changing its shape, they were adding more chakra to it and compressing it. Ao said. It was just a compressed ball of energy, and when it hit the ground, all the compressed energy with the lightning it all went. The large crater explained how it all went. But to be able to do something like that you need to have high-level chakra control and a high level of concentration. I bet he was able to focus on his jutsu by the thought that no one in the battlefield would be able to touch him. Mei thought to herself. Battlefield. If some shinobi in Yagura's army thought Naruto was done, they thought wrong. Naruto began to charge towards a group of shinobi. They took notice of him and steeled themselves to get into fighting positions. Water release. Water gun, a shinobi yelled, releasing a stream of jet water that sped towards Naruto. Naruto, seeing the attack, held a single hand seal and gathered chakra within his lungs. Fire release. Great fireball, he muttered as a large fireball was expelled from his mouth towards the enemy. The two jutsus met in between and began to push each other for dominance. Water release. Water gun, another shinobi yelled as he added to the strength of his comrade's jutsu. The combined water gun pushed Naruto's jutsu back, forcing him to release his jutsu and leap away to avoid being hit by the two jutsus. As soon as he landed a few feet away, Naruto was assaulted by fireball. It was a lot weaker and smaller than his. Naruto was surprised to see Kiri shinobi using fire techniques given their reliance to use water jutsus. He jumped away from the fireball, avoiding it. He landed a few feet away to the ground and looked around the battlefield. Now that the shinobi were scattered across the battlefield, they could attack him easily with their jutsus without fear of catching their own with their own jutsus. Naruto had not complaints over it, it made things a bit interesting for him to say the least. Naruto began to run towards another group of shinobi. He sped towards them with incredible speed. Without even a warning, he appeared in front of a shinobi in air and descended down towards the shinobi. He landed a 2-foot kick on the man's chest. Naruto used the man's body as ground to jump into another man. The man seemed to have been waiting for him as he swung his sword towards Naruto's face. Naruto grabbed another ninja close to him and used him as shield to defend himself against the sword swipe. He threw the man away he had used as a shield and lunged at the man who almost cut him. He landed a kick on the man's temple, sending him flying. 4 men surrounded him, all looking to attack him. One threw an explosive tag towards him. Naruto quickly deflected it back to the enemy and jumped away from them to avoid getting caught within what was to happen. Boom. The explosive tag exploded, blowing all the 4 men away. Naruto landed a distance away. He looked at his right to see a wave of kunais flying towards him. Looking at them carefully with his Sharingan eyes, he could see that they had explosive tags. He went through hand seals, wind release, wind palm. Naruto's wind jutsu deflected all the kunais that were thrown at him, sending them away from him. Naruto was not given more time to think about anything else. Earth release. Earth spikes. The ground underneath Naruto began to shake as the earth formed sharp spikes and sprout out from the ground. Naruto disappeared from his position in a burst of speed. The moment he landed, another jutsu came flying towards him. Wind release. Wind dragon. This time Naruto could not dodge as the jutsu hit him dead on. It did not do any damage to him though. All it did was send him flying, to which Naruto flipped several times in midair and landed on the ground in a crouched position. He got up slowly and dusted himself. His armor had several scratches because of the sharp blades caused by the wind dragon. They are working together with their attacks now, Naruto stated as he observed the now gathered army. They realized that with them having scattered around the battlefield, it made things easy for him to attack them. It also made it easy for them, but so far, it was working for him better than them. Naruto looked up as he saw about 100 men throw shurikens towards him. There was no dodging them. Naruto unstrapped his gunbai for the first time since entering the battlefield. He held it firmly with his right hand before swinging. It released gusts of winds that peeled off chunks of earth as they headed towards the projectiles thrown towards Naruto. As soon as the projectiles made contact with the gusts of winds released by Naruto's gunbai, they were deflected away from Naruto. Naruto placed his gunbai back on his back and began to form hand seals. Wind release. Wind tornado, he muttered as 3 wind tornadoes began to spin around him furiously. Naruto clasped his hands together and the 3 tornadoes united, forming one large roaring tornado. The tornado was picking up debris as it rotated around. Naruto looked at the tornado. His eyes morphed into his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Amaterasu, he muttered, setting the tornado ablaze with the black flames of Amaterasu. He had set the correct ratio of both elements or else their combination would blow up. The tornado became dark as it now became a fire tornado. Naruto allowed the tornado to rush towards the enemy. The technique was a large scale of his blazing tornado. This was made with a large number of enemies in mind. The attack neared the enemy who kept shooting water-based jutsus to try and extinguish the flames. Unfortunately for them, the black flames were not ordinary flames. Therefore, regardless of their attempts to stop the technique, it just passed through their own without much difficulty. The tornado consumed more than 50 men within it, chewing them. They let loose of some pained screams as the blazing tornado cooked them as they rotated in fast speeds within it. The jutsu finally died down, leaving black fire around the battlefield still alive, burning brightly and slowly on the ground. Naruto went through hand seals, fire release, majestic flame destroyer. Naruto yelled as he released his wave of flames that spread out wide, rushing towards Yagura's army like a sea wave. They saw the attack coming and knew how to survive. Water release, water encampment wall. Multiple shinobi yelled, creating a wall of water to block Naruto's jutsu from getting to them. The several water walls formed one large water wall that spread out wide, matching Naruto's jutsus. The 2 jutsus came head-on and pushed each other. In the end, there was no winner as the contest between the fire element and water element left only a cloud of steam between Naruto and Yagura's army. Naruto did not wait for the steam to die down. He charged towards the army. He had one man yell, "He is coming." He figured the man must have been a sensor to sense him with the cloud of steam. Naruto went through hand seals as he jumped in air, fire release, majestic fire destruction. Naruto expelled a stream of flames that sped toward the targets. The targets had not expected to see another attack flying toward them. The unlucky shinobi were unfortunate when the flames hit them before exploding into a sea of flames, thus burning everything within them to dust. Naruto was doing well in crippling Yagura's army. The army was taking heavy losses because of Naruto's destructive jutsus. Most of them were hard for them to defend, to some it just seemed impossible to defend against some of the jutsus. 2 men screamed as they charged towards Naruto with their kunais at hand. They surrounded him and lunged themselves at him. One flanked him at his front, while the other charged at him on his back. Naruto brought out his sword to parry a kunai that was coming towards his face. The man on his back was already onto him. He tried to stab him on his back while he was still parrying the attack from his comrade. With fluid movements, Naruto pushed the other man back, causing him to lose his balance. Naruto spun around quickly to block the kunai that was about to stab him on the back. Without even looking back, he raised up his foot and delivered a kick to the chest to the other man who was trying to regain his footing. He stared the man at his eyes before the man froze with wide eyes. Naruto wasted no time in driving his sword through the man's chest. He grabbed the man by his left hand. Naruto narrowed his eyes at his right. More than 20 different jutsus of different elements were coming towards him on different directions. Naruto looked at the other man. He had already recovered from his kick and was charging towards him. Decoys, Naruto muttered, concluding that the 2 men were just decoys sent to keep him busy while the others prepared the jutsus that were being thrown at him. All the jutsus neared him before hitting him dead on along with the other man from Yagura's army. A large explosion rocked the battlefield again, picking up debris. The enemy was starting to celebrate as their jutsus got a direct hit on their enemy. He could be counted as such now that they have seen what he is capable of, after seeing the deaths he inflicted on their comrades. And also the fact that he was fighting against them. Their celebrations were cut short when the debris cleared around Naruto and revealed him to be in perfect health. There was not a single scratch on him. He did not look like he was hit by several jutsus. He stood still with his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan activated. "Attack him again," another man yelled. The others went through hand seals. They charged several jutsus at Naruto again. The jutsus came at different directions as they sped towards Naruto. The way at which the attacks were coming at him, it gave him no place to hide if he wanted to. Naruto remained still with the jutsus speeding towards him. He had his hands folded across his chest. We will get him this time. There is no way he can survive an attack of this magnitude. Another yelled with confidence. No man could survive the kind of attack they fired at Naruto. Their hopes of killing him crumbled down within seconds as Naruto appeared standing without a scratch on him. It was just impossible for someone to survive an attack like the one they threw at him. More than shocking is the fact that Naruto did not even have a scratch on him, like their attacks did not even touch him. Naruto eyed around the battlefield. There was still many shinobi on their feet. The others were dead or just rendered immobile. He went through hand seals gathering the needed chakra for his jutsu. Wood release. Deep forest emergence. The ground began to shake as large roots sprout out from the ground and charged towards his opponents. They could only stare as the techniques headed towards them. One thing was certain, if it reached them, they were going to die. We cannot allow the technique to get to us. One man yelled, deciding to be brave for everyone so that they could survive. What do you suggest we do then? We intercept it with our own techniques, he replied firmly. They nodded and released fire, lightning, earth and wind-based techniques towards Naruto's jutsu. The jutsu collided, creating a large explosion. When the explosion died down, there was no jutsu still active. The jutsus had cancelled each other. Ho! Naruto smiled. They stopped my jutsu, he said to himself. I shall reward them. The orange Susanoo flared up to life, shocking his opponents. They stared the beast with wide eyes. What the hell is that? The voice of the man who asked was clearly trembling in fear. He got no response though. Naruto did several hand seals before holding a tiger seal. His Susanoo held a tiger seal the same time as he did. He was preparing for his next jutsu that could only be performed by his Susanoo. What the hell do you think he is going to do now? I don't know. Whatever it is, I have a bad feeling about this. Naruto's Susanoo opened its mouth and began to charge chakra. The chakra became the shape of an orange ball. The orange ball came out of its mouth, floated in the air. The Susanoo's eyes flashed red for a moment before the chakra ball sped towards the enemy. It suddenly stopped in the middle of them, and they stared at it while taking a few steps away from it. Explode, Naruto muttered. Boom. The orange chakra ball exploded. The explosion created a large shockwave that threatened even the rebels who were watching not far away from the battlefield. The explosion itself peeled off large chunks of earth like a bomb had been dropped on the battlefield. Large mushroom on F debris was formed where the explosion had been set off. Naruto had his Susanoo to protect him from the explosion. After a few minutes, the debris died down, revealing a large crater in the battlefield. The crater was bigger than the one created by the lightning flame explosion. The technique was created by studying Bijumuda. It required gathering large amounts of chakra and compressing it to a small ball of chakra. It required high level of concentration to compress the chakra. Without proper control or a mistake done while compressing, the chakra would become unstable and detonate. It would end up nasty for the user upon the unstable chakra setting off. Naruto was now inside the crater formed by his technique. He studied his surroundings with his eyes before dispersing his Susanoo and deactivating his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Yagura's army and the rebels only asked themselves one single question: what is he? The latest attack had left less than 700 shinobi standing and more than 450 immobile. Those standing did not seem like they wanted to continue fighting. Naruto walked over to one man who was close to him. The man, seeing Naruto, began to take a few steps away from him. He was trembling with fear. His body was screaming for him to run away. Stay back. The man yelled out, looking at Naruto with an unfocused vision. Naruto finally got close to the man and gripped him by his neck before lifting him up into the air. You no longer wish to dance with me? Naruto asked, tightening his grip on the man's neck. Naruto narrowed his eyes to his right. A wave of water collided with him and sent him flying. Naruto flipped in midair and landed on the ground after the force of the attack that had hit him was no longer compelling him. Naruto looked behind him to see the rebels towards the battlefield with loud noises. Mei was leading her men towards the battlefield. Naruto looked back at the person who was walking calmly towards him. So you are the nuisance that has crippled my army, the person exclaimed calmly looking at Naruto. Nuisance? Naruto questioned looking at the person. He did not wait for an answer as he spoke again. You must the Yondaime Mizukage, Yagura. Naruto stated looked at the now identified Mizukage. I have come to end you. I have allowed you to do as you please for too long, but unfortunately, I must end you. Yagura stated completely ignoring Naruto's words. Aloud. Naruto questioned again. You speak as if you could actually stop me if you wanted to. Naruto stated with narrowed eyes. That is because I can stop you. I am rather impressed by your abilities but I am not like my men and there is reason I am the Mizukage, Yagura stated keeping his tone calm. Can you really do it? Yes, I can. Do you want to find out? Before either could do anything, Mei appeared beside Naruto. She had a usually kind smile even at the face of the battlefield. Mei looked at Naruto. He did not have a single bruise on his body. He seemed to be in perfect condition despite all the power he had exerted during his fight with Yagura's army and all the attacks they had thrown at him. Even seeing that was fine, Mei felt the urge to ask him if he was fine. Are you alright, Naruto? Naruto looked at the woman for a moment before looking back at Yagura. First Yugao was worrying about him when she found out he could summon the Kyuubi. Now it was Mei. He had been reading people for all his life. Reading people had been his only tool for survival. Right now with that single glance at Mei, he could tell that the woman was concerned. Why did they have to worry about him? Sure, he had saved Yugao, but he was only repaying her a favor. With Mei, he was helping her by fighting Yagura and his army. But why did they have to worry about him? Who did they think he was? He was not someone they could call friend or anyone else and yet they worry about him. Not even Madara showed concern when speaking to him after he had revealed himself as his grandfather. Perhaps he never showed he was worried for him because he knew he could take care of himself. I'm fine, he replied after a few thoughts had passed through his head. You should go and fight with your men. I will take care of the Mizukage. Naruto stated. You have been fighting all this time without rest. You should rest while I fight Yagura. Mei said not wanting him to put himself in danger. Naruto looked at Mei with a straight face. I do not need rest, he replied. Mei frowned slightly. This was not working. Why does he persist to fight on his own while she could fight? She also had cage-level strength. She could hold her own against Yagura. No, it was not that Naruto did not acknowledge her or anything. He just wanted to fight on his own. She could say that he wanted to have all the fun for himself. How could he be so selfish? Mei thought looking at Naruto. Naruto hand a single hand seal. Kai, he muttered releasing some of his chakra that was sealed. The wind around him began to pick up for a second before dying down. Naruto held out his hand and looked at it. This should help my chakra levels rise again, Naruto thought to himself. I may have more chakra than people could imagine but even with that it is not unlimited, well it does not matter anyway. You should go, Naruto stated looking at Yagura who seemed to be waiting patiently for them to finish talking. Mei sighed. Fine, but I will not be far, she replied in a defeated tone. Getting Naruto to rest while she fights Yagura was one war she could never win. Shall we Yondaime? Naruto asked looking at the Yondaime Mizukage. Yagura said not word further. He simply vanished and appeared in front of Naruto. It was rather some impressive speed, Naruto would agree. The Mizukage was shorter than Naruto in height when he stood in front of Naruto. With speed that would be blinding to any normal shinobi, Yagura drove his right fist towards Naruto's gut. His opponent was also fast and had very good reflexes. Naruto intercepted Yagura's punch with his own. The punches collided and caused sparks to fly around them. Yagura retrieved his fist before he tried a roundhouse kick at Naruto. He swung his leg towards Naruto looking to kick him away. The attack was still visible before Naruto's eyes. He brought out his own leg to block the attack. As soon as his legs collided, Naruto moved his other leg and attempted to kick Yagura on his temple. Yagura retrieved his leg and quickly brought out his arms to block the kick. Naruto having his attack blocked and without having his legs to support him, he began to fall down the ground but quickly brought out his hands and used them as support. His front was left vulnerable to an attack. His opponent took the chance and jumped in air before descending to the ground. He attempted to kick Naruto at the back of his foot. Naruto seeing that he was going to get hit. He stopped using his hands as support means and fell to the ground on his back. He positioned his hands on his front. Yagura's kick collided with his hands and tried to break through the defense, but there was no luck. The attack forced Naruto to the ground, creating a small crater where he laid with his hands crossed at his front and Yagura on top of him. Yagura stopped pushing power to his kick and tried to jump away. However, before he could go anywhere, Naruto was already in front of him. Naruto was not wasting any time in attacking the Jinchuriki. He swung his right foot towards Yagura, who brought out his left hand to block the kick. He succeeded in blocking Naruto's kick. Naruto responded by bringing out his other foot and attempted to kick Yagura. This time his kick connected with Yagura's head, sending him flying away. Naruto stood still as he watched Yagura recover from the kick that sent him flying. He landed on the ground with both his legs. Both charged at each other before engaging in a fierce taijutsu battle. Their taijutsu battle created small shockwaves around the battle. Others could only see blurs, as they were moving at a faster speed of cage level. Naruto blocked all of Yagura's attempts to hit him. Yagura was relentless in his attacks. He kept going after Naruto, trying to penetrate through his defense, but he had no success. They separated, creating a distance between them. Naruto ran towards Yagura after they had separated. Upon reaching the Yondaime, he threw a right hook punch at Yagura. The Mizukage saw the attack coming and leaned back to avoid being hit by Naruto's fist. The punch seemed to have a lot of power behind it, as he felt small winds hit his face as the punch passed by him. Naruto spun around and came back facing his opponent with his right foot raised. Yagura could not escape the kick in time, thus he brought out both his hands to block the spinning kick. Yagura was able to block but only came to regret his choice as he winced in when Naruto's kick connected with his hands. It felt like a brick had hit him. The force of the attack made him lose his balance, giving Naruto the chance to attack again. Faster than one could see, Naruto moved closer to Yagura and kneed him on the gut, causing Yagura to wince again as it felt like something heavy had crashed to his gut. He shrugged the pain off though and attempted to retaliate by punching Naruto in the face. Naruto ducked under the punch and kicked Yagura on the chest. Yagura lost his footing and was about to fall down when Naruto grabbed him by his hand. Naruto grabbed Yagura's hand tightly and spun around a few times while still holding Yagura. After he had gained enough momentum, he let go of Yagura, sending the Mizukage away from him in flight. As soon as he let go of Yagura, Naruto began to form hand seals, fire release, fire breath. Naruto breathed out a jet stream of hot flame towards Yagura, who was still in flight after being thrown away by Naruto. The flames traveled in great speed towards the Yondaime, glaring at him as they sought to drip their fangs on his skin. Yagura cursed as he saw the flame coming towards him. The speed to which he was flying it made it difficult for him to get out of the way, as he had yet to regain his balance. If he had his balance, he could just simply dodge the jutsu. That was out of the question though. He could not dodge the flames in his current position. He may not be able to balance himself, but he could still use his ninjutsu. The flames collided with Yagura and began to burn him. Naruto watched as the flames died, leaving nothing. Mizu Bunshin, Naruto thought as he landed down the ground. Yagura appeared behind Naruto and began to form hand seals. The fact that he was the Sanbi's Jinchuriki gave him a higher control over the water element. Water was his Biju's natural element. Water release. Exploding water shock wave. Yagura yelled as he released a large wave of water. The water wave was almost big as Naruto's majestic flame destroyer. Yagura began to ride on the wave at a fast speed. Naruto, seeing the water coming towards him, he unstrapped his gunbai and positioned it in front of him. Gunbai barrier, he muttered as he channeled chakra through his gunbai. A barrier erected around him, shielding him from Yagura's attack. The wave swallowed Naruto under it and the water calmed down. The water became like a sea in the middle of the large crater to which the fight was occurring. When the water calmed down, Naruto was seen standing with his gunbai still positioned in front of him. The image only lasted for a second as Naruto placed his gunbai back to his back. The attack had done nothing to him with his gunbai barrier erected. Naruto looked at water. That was the result of Yagura's jutsu. The water would not doubt give him an advantage in being able to use water jutsu. Some water jutsus required a source of water to be able to be performed. The large amount of water that was now abundant in the battlefield would make it easy for Yagura to do water-based jutsus. Nevertheless, it did not matter anyway. It was not as if the results would be the different even with the advantage. Yagura shot towards Naruto in blinding speeds. Naruto, seeing his opponent coming, readied himself. He just had to make sure that he had chakra under his feet to keep balance since they were now fighting onto a sea of water. Yagura reached Naruto with his right fist raised and threw the fist towards Naruto's temple. Seeing the punch before his eyes, Naruto did not allow it to connect with his face. He brought out his hand and blocked Yagura's punch. Despite the fact that Yagura was smaller than, Naruto had to admit, the man did know how to pack a punch. Yagura, seeing that his attempt to smack Naruto in the face was a failure, he used his other arm to punch Naruto. Again, Naruto blocked. Yagura began to throw punch after punch at Naruto, who was dodging and blocking each punch. Yagura leapt into the air before descending down towards Naruto with both his legs pressed together. He was looking for a 2-foot kick on Naruto. An assault as this carried more weight than a single leg kick. Naruto leapt backwards away from the attack. With his target having avoided him, Yagura crashed into the ground with both his feet. While Yagura was still grounded down, Naruto landed a distance away from him. Naruto looked behind him at the corner of his eye as he sensed something. Another Yagura appeared behind him with a swinging his right foot. Naruto spun around to block the attack. Yagura had calculated this. Another him appeared behind Naruto just as he had spun around. The two Yaguras kicked Naruto and sent him rocketing away. One of the Yaguras crumbled down and became one with the water. Naruto flipped several times after being kicked and landed down with chakra on his feet to balance himself on the water. He regained his complete balance and looked back at Yagura. Yagura did not give Naruto much time to look at him, he rushed towards him in cage-level speed. Upon reaching Naruto, he leapt into the air and flipped once. While he was in air, his body was now facing the ground. He descended towards Naruto and attempted a kick on top of Naruto's head. His opponent was easily able to read into the move and bring out both his hands to block the attack. Yagura's foot connected with his hands and forced him to the ground a bit due to the power of the kick and the position in which Yagura was. Yagura's whole body weight was on top of him, giving his kick more power. Regardless, Naruto held his ground and pushed Yagura away. The Mizukage flipped in midair before landing on the ground. He did not waste time to charge at Naruto again. He appeared to lunge himself at Naruto's left side before completely disappearing and appeared on Naruto's right side. His foot was swung towards Naruto's waist level. The attack would have managed to hit anyone else, but not Naruto. He was able to see through Yagura with his eyes to move to counter-attack. He spun around to face Yagura with his foot raised, kicking towards Yagura's incoming kick. The kicks collided and pushed each other for dominance. The stronger kick would push the weaker back, giving advantage to the stronger. Yagura, seeing his attack blocked, brought back his foot before swinging another. Naruto leapt back to avoid Yagura's attempt to kick him. He landed a few feet away from the Mizukage. Without further ado, he charged at Yagura, appearing in front of him. He brought out his right hand and attempted to punch Yagura on his gut. The Mizukage, being experienced in battles, jumped back quickly, narrowly avoiding Naruto's punch. As soon as Yagura landed down, Naruto was again in front of him. He was going for a roundhouse kick on Yagura, which was blocked rather easily by the Mizukage. Naruto blurred out of Yagura's front and appeared behind him. He had moved in such speed that surprised the Mizukage. Yagura did not have time to block or dodge as Naruto's kick connected with Yagura's back and sent him flying. Yagura winced as he felt like he was hit by steel at his back. Naruto kicked hard, even the punches were painful. While Yagura was still in flight, Naruto appeared above him and kicked him to the ground. Yagura went down towards the water in a fast speed. He crashed down the water, separating the water. Naruto landed a few feet away from where Yagura had crashed. Yagura recovered quickly and appeared from the water, albeit soaked. He stared at Naruto as he went through hand seals. Water release. Water dragon, he yelled. Capitalizing on the water lying around the battlefield, he created a large water dragon. He created it through the manipulation of his water affinity. The large dragon formed and steadied as its eyes trained on Naruto, its prey. Naruto looked at the water dragon impassively. He knew that the water dragon could be controlled remotely. There was no use for to try to dodge or running away from the jutsu. It would seek him out till it hit. He began to form his own hand seals as Yagura's water dragon charged towards him. Fire release. Majestic fire destruction. Naruto breathed out a stream of flames of intense heat. The flames spread towards the water dragon that was still on its charge towards him. The flames and the water dragon collided. Naruto's flames exploded into a sea of flames upon hitting their target. The water dragon was consumed by the sea of flames. The hot flames melted the flames nothing more than steam. The flames also reduced the water in the battlefield considerably, creating a cloud of steam. When the cloud finally cleared, all the jutsus had died down and neither of the users were in danger of any sort. Other than the fact that Yagura was slightly panting, he was all right. He had yet to receive any real damage from his battle with Naruto. On the other side, Naruto was in perfect condition. He was tired slightly, he just was not showing it. The chakra he had released replenished his reserves. However, that was not the only good thing about the stored-up chakra. It also replenished his energy. Naruto could as well say that it worked as a soldier pill. After recovering his breath, Yagura charged at the unmoving figure of Naruto. The blonde-haired Sharingan user was just standing there motionless as if waiting for Yagura to attack him. Yagura appeared in front of Naruto and spun around, attempted a back kick, and Naruto deflected the kick by his own leg. He withdrew his sword from its sash. Holding it tightly on its handle, he slashed it vertically at Yagura. Without a proper weapon to defend against the sword, Yagura jumped back to avoid being cut. You could not fight against someone with a sword when you did not have it. Dodging was the only way he could fight. Naruto lunged himself in front of Yagura, not giving him much time to plan for a way to fight. He swung his left foot towards Yagura, forcing him to bring out his hands to block the kick. Naruto was expecting Yagura to do just that. He put more power behind his kick, causing Yagura to lose his footing. Naruto slashed his sword across Yagura's chest. With his hands occupied by Naruto's kick, Yagura had no way to defend himself. Regardless of that, he was not some weak shinobi. He allowed his body to lean back despite not having complete balance over his body. His action did enough to avoid the sword from leaving a large gash on his chest. The tip of the sword cut across his chest, leaving him bleeding slightly. Naruto not leave things as they were. He delivered a knee to Yagura's gut while the man was still processing the fact that he had been cut. He jumped up and spun around, delivering a hard kick on Yagura's face, sending him flying away. Naruto flicked his blade, banishing the blood that was dripping from it after he had cut Yagura. With the blood gone, he placed it back to its sash and waited to Yagura to regain his bearings. After crashing down, Yagura got up panting slightly and swiped the blood that was leaking off his mouth. He stood still for a moment staring at Naruto. The blonde was still in good condition while he had a cut across his chest, though not deep, it was still a cut. The strain of the fight was already taking toll on his body. Naruto went through hand signs, seeing the Yagura was now up. There was nothing keeping him from attacking Yagura right now. He channeled the required chakra and turned it into fire before expelling it. Fire release, majestic flame destruction. A large wave of flames spreading across the battlefield sped towards Yagura. Yagura channeled much of his chakra and manipulated the water in the battlefield to create a water wall. The water wall held on for a little while before the overwhelming flames pushed through. Naruto narrowed his eyes behind him as the flames died down. There was no water left in the battlefield due to Naruto's jutsu. Behind him, Yagura was on his knees panting. A part of his body was slightly burned by the flames Naruto had unleashed towards him. Naruto turned around and walked towards the kneeling Mizukage. He then picked up his pace, speeding fast towards the tired-looking opponent. Yagura rose up from his kneeling position upon seeing Naruto charge towards him. He stood up and took a defensive stance. Naruto appeared in front of him. Before Naruto could do anything, Yagura threw a punch at Naruto's face. Naruto ducked under punch before delivering a punch of his own to Yagura's gut. He proceeded to punch Yagura twice on the face before gripping his neck tightly, causing him to gasp for air. Naruto slammed the Mizukage down the ground with so much force that created a small crater where Yagura had hit. Naruto jumped away from Yagura while still in flight. He went through hand seals, fire release, phoenix flower, he muttered as he released fireballs that went down to Yagura like meteorites. Yagura regained his bearings and stood up before going through hand seals, water release, water wall. He yelled as he expelled water from his mouth that created a wall in front of him. The wall protected him from the fireballs, as the fireballs did not penetrate through his defense. Naruto landed down the ground gracefully. He did a few hand seals, wind release, wind palm, he muttered as he sent a gust of wind toward the unmoving form of Yagura. The wind hit Yagura dead on, only for him to turn into a puddle of water. Naruto narrowed his eyes behind him. Water release. Water bomb. Yagura yelled as a swirling ball of water formed in front of him and sped towards Naruto. Naruto took out his gunbai and positioned it in front of him. Gunbai barrier, he muttered as he channeled chakra through his gunbai erecting a barrier. The water bomb collided with his gunbai barrier before exploding. Naruto's barrier held still protecting Naruto. When the explosion of water cleared, Naruto was standing still with his gunbai in his hand. He placed it on his back having served its purpose. Naruto saw the Yagura was on his knees again. He held a single tiger seal molding chakra. Fire release. Great fireball, he muttered and expelled a large fireball at Yagura. The fireball rushed at Yagura and hit him, engulfing him in flames. Naruto sensed a burst of Biju chakra as soon the flames hit Yagura. He watched careful as the flames died down. He could feel the tailed beast chakra resonating around the battlefield. When the flames died down, Yagura was nowhere. However, there was a creature formed of crimson-red chakra. The creature had demonic eyes that stared at him deathly and three tails waving slowly behind it. Yagura had pulled out all of the Sanbi's power. "You are going all out?" Naruto asked, though never waited for an answer. "Then I Uchiha Naruto shall respond with my full strength," he said, clasping both his hands together. He began to release all of his chakra. The chakra he was releasing became visibly outwardly. Winds blew by around him causing debris to arise. The chakra resonated around the battlefield causing the few battles that were still going on to come to a halt. It was impossible for anyone not to notice the kind of power Naruto was releasing. All just watched with wide eyes. The wind around Naruto began to pick up in new strength, creating more debris than they had been. Naruto continued to unleash his power. His chakra became visibly to the naked eye. No one had ever felt so much chakra coming from a single person. The form of a sanbified Yagura never tensed as Naruto released his strength. He just stood still looking as if the chakra Naruto was releasing was of no consequence. Like the chakra was nothing. He stood still like he could handle whatever that was that Naruto could throw at him. Even the debris began to swirl around Naruto heavily. He never took a step back nor shielded his eyes from being blinded by the debris. Naruto's Susanoo flared up to life in all its orange glory. Its head gaining an even more fearsome look with the horns and eyes that seemed to be glowing with power. A strong shockwave blew, dispelling the debris that had picked up around Naruto. When the debris cleared, Naruto was standing still inside his Susanoo. He stretched out his hands, not yet, he thought, and clasped his hands together. His Susanoo did the same. Another strong shockwave rocked the battlefield as Naruto released more chakra. He finally stopped and smiled slightly. His Susanoo now held two orange blades. When everything had quieted down, Yagura did not need to be told to attack Naruto. In a blinding speed he shot towards Naruto. Small chunks of earth were lifted as he shot towards Naruto. The speed he had picked up surprised him, even Naruto, but not enough to shock him or make him lose his calm. Yagura appeared in front of Naruto and crashed to his Susanoo. The attack did not break through the defense. The Susanoo stood still without breaking. Yagura leapt away from Naruto, creating a distance between him and the blonde. He charged at Naruto again, this time faster and with more power than he did before. He crashed his fist to Naruto's Susanoo. The force of the punch caused the ground beneath Naruto to change form and become a crater with chunks of earth around the Susanoo picking up. Despite that, Naruto's Susanoo held on and never broke from the attack. This forced Yagura to jump back from Naruto and attack again. This time he was attacking Naruto on different directions, trying to find the weakness of the Susanoo. After all the attempts to break the defense, Yagura was neither success nor had any luck in find a weakness. The Susanoo was like an impenetrable wall that refused to be brought down. He growled in frustration and anger. It could be frustrating to anyone when you are trying to break someone's defense and find no luck. If he could not break through Naruto's defense, then he could not touch the blonde-haired shinobi. If he had not stopped, my Susanoo would have broken, Naruto thought to himself. The punches Yagura were throwing were not just normal punches. They could destroy a man with a single hit. It does not matter anyway, I could have just activated it again if it had been broken. It seems you are done, Naruto said. Then allow me to take my dance, he stated. The Susanoo brought out its right blade and swung it towards Yagura. The attack was fast but not faster than Yagura. He disappeared from the path of the blade and appeared a distance away. The blade the ground creating a large crater before being retrieved back to Naruto. Yagura sped towards Naruto. His opponent now was ready to attack him. As soon as Yagura appeared before Naruto, the Susanoo swung its blade in blinding speeds and crashed it at Yagura, sending him flying towards the ground like a bullet. Boom. Chunks of earth lifted when Yagura had hit the ground. It did not take a second for the three-tailed Yagura to stand up. He was still covered by the crimson-red chakra of the Sanbi. He did not look like he had suffered any damage from Naruto's attack. Without further ado, he charged at Naruto again. A blade of the Susanoo almost hit him as he appeared in front of Naruto. However, he disappeared in the last second to avoid being hit. He was forgetting that Naruto's Susanoo was holding two blades. The other blade that had not attacked him before crashed onto him and sent him rocketing towards the ground. The Susanoo crossed its blade in front of it. The blades began to glow bright orange before releasing and attack a wave of energy towards the fallen Yagura. The attack sped towards Yagura in blinding speeds. The attack hit the ground with a boom and left an X mark on the ground. The attack hit Yagura dead on, compelling him to the ground. Yagura rose up from the ground grudgingly. He glared at Naruto and released a roar. Naruto deactivated his Susanoo. Despite the fact that Yagura did not seem to be hurt, Naruto knew he had dealt much damage to the Jinchuriki's body. It would be soon before his body would be unable to maintain his form. Naruto charged at Yagura with his wind chakra enhanced sword. He reached Yagura and took a swipe at the Jinchuriki. The blade did not cut the chakra skin, it did not even leave a mark on Yagura. Naruto spun around and attempted to kick Yagura on the face. Yagura ducked under the kick and punched Naruto on the gut, sending him flying away. The armor did absorb most of the attack, but it still hurt. Naruto flipped several times before finally landing on the ground. As soon as Naruto landed on the ground, Yagura was already running towards him in full speed. Naruto brought out his gunbai, knowing that he could not use any part of his body to block Yagura's attacks. Yagura appeared above him with his fist going straight to his face. Naruto positioned the gunbai in front of him. The punch crashed into his gunbai. The power behind the attack pushed Naruto back and caused chunks of earth to peel off where Naruto stood. Yagura attempted a kick on Naruto's left side. Again, Naruto brought his gunbai to his left side to block the attack. The power of the attack again pushed him sideways before he stopped. Naruto leapt backwards and strapped his gunbai before going through hand seals, fire release, great fireball, he muttered and expelled a large fireball that rushed towards Yagura. Yagura did not attempt to dodge the attack. The flames collided with him and engulfed him. When the flames finally died down, Yagura was standing perfectly still without any damage. He tried to move but found out that he could not go away. He looked behind him and saw another Naruto kneeling behind him. His three tails were pinned to the ground by wooden sticks. The clone dispelled, having accomplished its goal. Yagura began to struggle to get loose. Naruto did not wait for Yagura to break loose, he went through hand seals, wood release, wood serpent, he muttered as a wooden snake sprouted out from the ground and rushed at a struggling Yagura. The snake wrapped itself around Yagura, restricting his movements further. However, that was not the only thing the snake was doing. It was also draining Yagura of the Sanbi's chakra. Its jutsu was a recreation of Hashirama's wood dragon that was capable of eating a Biju's chakra. Naruto cancelled his jutsu, having seen that Yagura's body was now visible. The crimson-red chakra was no longer with him. His body seemed broken and worn out. Yagura fell to the ground on his face. A few seconds passed and he tried to get up but failed miserably as his body was broken. Naruto took out his sword and took a few steps towards Yagura. His movements came to a halt when Yagura exploded in a burst of chakra, lifting up debris. When the debris cleared, the three-tailed turtle stood in front of him in all its glory. Before Naruto could even think of anything else, the Sanbi began to charge a Bijumuda. Even Naruto knew that his Susanoo could not withstand the might of the Bijumuda. The Sanbi completed forming its Bijumuda and fired it towards Naruto. Naruto sped through hand seals, wood release, wood locking wall. Naruto slammed both his hands to the ground. Wooden pillars appeared from left and right. The wooden pillars created a dome shape with Naruto in the center. The Bijumuda collided with Naruto's defense jutsu. The Bijumuda exploded in a loud boom and created large amounts of debris. When the debris cleared, Naruto was on his knees panting. He had used too much chakra on the jutsu than he had thought he would. It took a lot chakra from him to keep the dome standing up against the power of the Bijumuda. While still on his knees, Naruto held out his hand and stared at it. Hashirama was able to use this jutsu in shielding himself against the Kyuubi's Bijumuda. According to Madara, it did not take a lot from him, it even remained standing. Mine only lasted enough to shield me from the explosion and it took a lot from me. Is it because Hashirama knew how to use natural energy? Is it because his level of mastery over the wood element was far superior to mine? Naruto questioned in his own thoughts. Catching his breath, he stood up. The technique had done its job to protect him, but it left him drained for much of his chakra. Perhaps it is because I have already exerted too much chakra already. Naruto thought to himself. He looked at the Sanbi to see it charging another Bijumuda. This time he was not going to allow it to finish creating that thing again. His Susanoo flared up to life and began to charge its Susanoo bomb. It did it at a faster rate than it did before. Naruto noticed that the Sanbi was pooling much of its chakra to the Bijumuda, which would explain why it was taking long to complete. Without a second wasted, Naruto fired the Susanoo bomb towards the Sanbi. Upon colliding with it, it exploded. Naruto was also counting on the fact that since the Sanbi was going to lose its concentration on the Bijumuda, it would become unstable, then bang. The explosion shook the entire battlefield. The large cloud of debris formed on where the explosion had set off. It took several minutes for the debris to clear, allowing everyone to see a rather large crater. It was large because it was also connected with the other two craters that were formed by Naruto's attacks. Now there was only one crater. Yagura was lying in the middle of the crater. Naruto's EMS was no longer active. The Susanoo bomb had taken much of the remaining chakra he had. And also defending against the Bijumuda had taken a lot from him. Naruto was on his knees breathing heavily. With the little chakra he had now, he could not even summon the Kyuubi. A large burst of blue chakra came out of Yagura, forming a pillar that kissed the skies. The pillar of chakra lasted for a few moments before it disappeared. Naruto smiled inwardly seeing this. He heard noises coming from behind him. He looked back and saw Yugao, Mei and her army running towards him. This is going to be annoying, he said to himself. End of chapter 11. Man, that was tiring. I never thought that I would be able to finish this chapter. I guess now you know what Zetsu meant when he made it clear that Madara would be proud upon seeing what Naruto was truly capable of doing. Somebody guessed the correct answer, as to why Naruto looked for Karen. I will explain the relationship between Naruto and the Kyuubi, and how he got the Biju to work with him. It will be explained in the next chapter via flashback. So people like Naruto with black hair, I guess I can make that work, when he does return to Konoha. Thanks for the wonderful reviews in chapter 10, thought the chapter might have been bad, glad you liked it. Thanks for listening, I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.